Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome to a new video of Cambridge IELTS, and this is a video about the IELTS reading, and the question type is true, false, not given, or yes, no, not given. These type of the questions come very often in IELTS reading. So in this video, I'm going to give you some tips and strategies that how can you solve this part of the IELTS reading test. So whenever these types of questions come in the IELTS reading test, you have to need to read the title of the passage. After reading the title of the passage, you can get the idea that what type of the information the writer has given in the passage. After this, read the statement, underline the keywords, get the main idea of the statement or question, and try to find that idea in the reading passage. So here you have to be very careful, because the words which you will read in the questions or statements will not exactly the same words in the reading passage. These are the similar meaning words. So you have to be very careful in solving this part of the test. It means that you have to remember the synonyms and paraphrases. Without the synonyms and paraphrases, you can't do the IELTS reading test. Now the question arises that which type of the statement or question is true or yes, and which type of the statement is false or no, and which type of the statement or question is not given. So if you find the information in the passage related to the question or statement, or if you find any information in the passage that matches with the statement or the question, then that question or statement is true or yes. If you find any information that contradicts with the statement or the question, then that question or statement is false or no. And if you didn't find any kind of information related to the statement in the question section, then that statement or question is not given. So let's go to the test and try to solve this part of the test. But before we solve the test, please like the video and subscribe my YouTube channel. Let's start. First of all, we have to look at the title of the passage, a remarkable beetle. So beetle means insect. It means that our today's passage is about the insects. And let's go to the question section. Question number 1. Bush flies are easier to control than buffalo flies. The keywords are bush flies and buffalo flies. These are two types of the flies. And the second thing is that there is a comparison between bush flies and buffalo flies, because word then is written in the question. So let's try to find the answer of this question in the passage. Let's read the paragraph 1. Some of the most remarkable beetles are the dung beetles, which spend almost their whole lives eating and breeding in dung. More than 4,000 species of these remarkable creatures have evolved and adapted to the world's different climates and the dung of its many animals. Australia's native dung beetles are scrub and woodland dwellers. These are the two types of the Australian beetles, specializing in the coarse marsupial droppings and avoiding the soft cattle dung in which bush flies and buffalo flies breed. So we have found the two types of the flies. These are the bush flies and buffalo flies. So after reading the paragraph, we can say that dung beetles spend their whole life in eating and breeding. Then we have read that 4,000 species of beetles adopted different climate zones in the world. And then we have also read about the Australians' native beetles like scrub and woodland dwellers. And the end of the paragraph, we have read that bush flies and buffalo flies breed in the soft cattle dung. So we can say that although we have read that bush flies and buffalo flies breed in the soft cattle dung, but we have not read the comparison between these two types of the flies, that which is easier to control. So the answer of the question number 1 is not given, because the question number 1 is bush flies are easier to control than buffalo flies. But in the passage, we did not find any comparison between these two types of the flies. Question number 2. 4,000 species of dung beetle were initially brought to Australia by CSIRO. So 4,000 species are the keywords, Australia is the keyword, and CSIRO is also a keyword. CSIRO stands for Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organization. So let's read the paragraph. In paragraph 2, CSIRO suggested that dung beetles should be introduced to Australia to control dung breeding flies. Between 1968 and 1982, the CSIRO imported insects from about 50 different species of dung beetle from Asia, Europe, and Africa, aiming to match them to different climatic zones in Australia. So in these lines of the paragraph 2, we have found that CSIRO imported 50 different species of dung beetle from Asia, Europe, and Africa, aiming to match them different climatic zones in Australia. So according to the paragraph, CSIRO imported 50 different species, whereas in the question, 4,000 species of dung beetle were initially brought to Australia by CSIRO. So the answer of the question number 2 is no. Question number 3. Dung beetles were brought to Australia by the CSIRO over a 14-year period. It means that CSIRO spent 14 years to bring dung beetles to Australia. Dung beetles, Australia, and 14-year period are the keywords. Our main focus should be on the number of years in the passage. And let's try to read the paragraph 2. CSIRO suggested that dung beetles should be introduced to Australia to control dung breeding flies. Between 1968 and 1982, the CSIRO imported insects from about 50 different species of dung beetle from Asia, Europe, and Africa, aiming to match them to different climatic zones in Australia. So, if we subtract 1982 by 1968, and our answer will be 14. So 14 is the number of years. And the question number 3 is that dung beetles were brought to Australia by CSIRO over a 14-year period. So our answer for the question number 3 is yes. Question number 4. At least 26 of the introduced species have become established in Australia. So it means that 26 species which were brought to Australia, they started breeding or became used to the Australian climate. Introduced means brought to, and as this passage is about the dung beetles, so the word established means started breeding. 26 species are the keywords, and established in Australia are the keywords. So in the passage, we have to focus on the number of species. Where the number of species will be given, it means that our answer will be there. Of the 26 species that are known to have become successfully integrated. Integrated means started breeding or became used to into the local environment. Only one an African species released in northern Australia has reached its natural boundary. Natural boundary means it started breeding as it used to. So it means that 26 species became used to and started breeding in local Australian environment. Our question is, at least 26 of the introduced species have become established in Australia. And in the paragraph we have read, of the 26 species that are known to have become successfully integrated into the local environment, only one, an African species released in northern Australia, has reached its natural boundary. And of course, northern Australia is also a part of Australia. So our answer for the question number 4 is yes. Question number 5. The dung beetles cause an immediate improvement to the quality of a cow pasture. By cow pasture, we mean the place where cows used to graze. It means that the dung beetles can improve the quality of cow pasture at once or immediately. So the dung beetles, immediate improvement, and cow pasture are the keywords. And our answer will be in the passage where we will read about the cow pastures. Introducing dung beetles into a pasture is a simple process. Approximately 1500 beetles are released, a handful at a time, into fresh cow pads in the cow pasture. The beetles immediately disappear beneath the pads, digging and tunneling, and if they successfully adapt to their new environment, soon become permanent, self-sustaining part of the local ecology. In time, they multiply. It means that they started breeding, and within 3 or 4 years, the benefits to the cow pasture are obvious. Obvious means surely. And it means that within 3 or 4 years, the benefit of the beetles started. So in the last line of the paragraph, we have read that in the time they multiply, and within 3 or 4 years, the benefit to the pasture are obvious. So we can say that dung beetles were beneficial for the cow pastures within the introduction of 3 or 4 years of them. Whereas the question number 5 is, the dung beetles cause immediate improvement to the quality of a cow pasture. So the answer of the question number 5 is no.